Hello everyone, it's Blaze, and welcome to another game theory video. It's been a hot minute since we've reacted to one of his videos, but they're basically going over something in Chapter 5. I didn't pay attention to the thumbnail, or to the title of it, but I figured why not react to one of theirs? It's been a hot minute since we watched it, so for now, let's start this thing.
Poppy's Chapter 5 teaser is here, and the mysteries it holds for the upcoming chapter can all be solved thanks to one thing. Fortnite?
Fortnite? Oh yeah, that's right. They had the Fortnite collab.
Hello,
I forgot about
Internet!
that.
Welcome to Game Theory, the show that is determined to uncover the secret of the ooze. Not the Ninja Turtle kind, mind you, the Poppy Playtime kind. Because after a lot of radio silence, we've got on our first glimpse for Poppy Playtime Chapter 5. At the end of Chapter 4, we were abandoned by Poppy. We got split up from Kissy Missy, and we ended up locked inside the lab, surrounded by poppy flowers and a broken, yet still terrifying, Huggy Wuggy. We've been told that this is
mediocre
the domain
Chapter
of the
4.
prototype, the big bad of Poppy Playtime. So naturally, the hype for this next chapter has been real, and thankfully, this teaser did not disappoint. The teaser begins with more shots of these anticipated labs. There are cute drawings of characters on the walls, and the equipment is brightly colored. It almost looks like a children's hospital, which I guarantee you is more for appearances than to actually reflect the horrors that go on here, because we quickly start to see what look like surgical rooms filled with old dried blood, a mysterious bubbling goo covering the floors, and a cutout of Poppy burning as this mysterious goo.
Yeah, this trailer definitely was so entertaining. I can't wait for it.
Hand it to Mob. They nailed the creepy, unsettling vibes for these teasers. And of course, this one is filled to the beaker brim with that stuff we crave, lore. Lore, which I believe not only gives us insight into the foundations of Playtime Co.'s whole experimental process, but also might be warning us about a surprise return from a villain you wouldn't expect. So put on your lab coats or some of our new Poppy Playtime merch from theoryverse.store, link in the description, because we've got to head to the lab and do some research into this Poppy Playtime Chapter 5 teaser. As I've mentioned, this facility looks more like a children's hospital than a lab. A lab is typically somewhere where scientific experiments are done. Sadly, however, as we've talked about many times before, for Playtime Co., children's hospital and scientific experiments go hand in hand. Over the previous chapters, we've learned that the orphans that come into Playtime Co.'s care are tested in the game station, tortured using the nightmare red smoke in the playcare, and eventually taken away to be turned into the living toys we've encountered throughout the facility. On the operating table in one of the scenes, we can see two Huggy Wuggy mittens strewn across the lab, surrounded by blood and surgical equipment.
That's probably when the
lab is
surgeon
absolutely where these transformations happened, where Harley Sawyer, the mad doctor who came up with the idea for the Bigger Bodies initiative, did his finest work. What's even more concerning is that we were told in Chapter 4 that this is where the prototype is keeping the orphans who survived the mass extinction event known as
probably
the
all in
Hour
their
of
adult
Joy.
years at this point if they're still alive.
During the Hour of Joy, they're below. In the labs, the prototype's home.
Fortunately, it doesn't look like these surgeries happened recently. The blood on the floor looks old, dry, and faded, much like the blood we've seen in previous chapters from employees killed during the Hour of Joy in 1995. Plus, we know that the prototype didn't allow Harley access to this part of the facility once the Bigger Bodies took over.
That will give me labs access.
That is out of the question.
Fine.
So it's not like he could continue experimenting on the kids even if he wanted to. But while the prototype seems like it's trying to protect the orphans, that doesn't mean there isn't any experimentation going on. After we get shots of the surgical rooms, we are shown a room with the prototype's shadow creeping past in the
I can't wait to see what the prototype actually looks
camera's
like.
Focus is.
Oh,
The camera is
I'm so
instead
excited.
drawing our eyes to the bright pink and orange bubbling goo that covers parts of the floor. Much like the gas mask in Chapter 3's teaser, this being emphasized shows us that this is going to be important to this part of the story. So, what is it? Well, just like with Chapter 3's teaser, I don't think it's wild to assume that this has something to do with poppies. They are basically the MacGuffins of this series and have always been part of the scientific process for Playtime Co. All the way back in Chapter 2, we got this note on Elliot's desk about Experiment 814, where they were trying to revive rats by submerging them in poppy gel and then sending a current through it. This was where my brain immediately went when I saw the bubbling goop on the floor. That this is the poppy gel that we read about all those years ago.
Yeah, I figured that was the poppy gel.
That gel didn't work. Experiment experiment 814 is considered a failure, but the writer, most likely Harley Sawyer, believed it would be possible with larger subjects. We then never hear about this gel again, so it is entirely possible that Harley was right, and that this gel derived from poppies.
I wonder if they forgot about it all this
revive
time.
its subjects
Just finally
once they
remembered.
switched over to children, and that is therefore the gel that we are seeing on the floor here. However, something definitely feels different about it. Originally, the subject was just put into the gel, as in around the outside of them. It was more of a conductor, with electricity being sent through the gel to try and bring the subject back to life, with some help from the poppy flower, of course. But now, it seems more active, bubbling on its own, which is never a good sign. And in the final scene, as well as in the thumbnail for the teaser itself, the gel seems to have these vein-like structures coming out of it.
Became
almost
its own
like
creature.
it's a living thing. Maybe this is how they created the physical biology for the bigger bodies. While they used some human parts, as we've seen in previous notes, a child isn't going to have enough muscles or organ material to stretch over something as tall as Huggy Wuggy, but that's entirely speculation. We have no way of really knowing exactly what this gel is. Or that's what I thought, until I found out that there is very important poppy lore pertaining to exactly this in the most unlikely of places. Fortnite. Yes, you heard me right.
I hate Fortnite. Never playing it.
A free-to-play battle royale.
Never playing it.
Poppy
Don't ask me.
Playtime lore. In October, Fortnite held their Fortnightmares event. And that name is almost as confusing as the Poppy Playtime line. But regardless, as
no, that
part
one
of
makes
a
sense.
preview, the week before the event, Mob Entertainment released a map called Poppy Playtime Escape Trials, which included Huggy Wuggy and the ruined critters as enemies to avoid. It's pretty straightforward in that regard. However, hidden throughout the map were Poppy Playtime's iconic notes and VHS tapes. At first, I thought this was just going to be stuff we already knew. Repeats of notes and VHS tapes from previous chapters.
Assume it would
just
be,
trying
but
to get new
nope,
fans
Mob
hooked
Games
and
is going the
caught
extra
up.
mile.
Oh,
I applaud them
was
for
I
that.
Wrong. These notes cover so much new stuff that feels way too big for a random collab. For example, they just casually revealed Poppy's real name. Yep, the real name she had when she was a human before she died
I heard about
tragically
this
in the
one.
1960s and was turned into a toy
I'm
by
pretty sure her name
father,
is
Elliot
actually
Ludwig.
Poppy.
Guys, we've been over this. Putting lore in a spin-off game is one thing. Expecting audiences to solve complex ARGs to keep up with the story is another. But this? There are so many people who just won't know about this stuff simply because they don't want to play Fortnite. You're an indie horror
Agreed.
game. Battle Royales and indie horror games don't always have the best crossover
Nope.
audience.
They
What's
are
next?
not
Does your
the
Minecraft collab have crucial lore? Oh, please don't tell me your Minecraft collab has crucial lore.
It does somewhere.
Anyway, there's a note
Probably.
you can find that is a diary entry from her, telling us she's 11 in March of 1960, and she even signs her name. And that name is, drumroll please, Poppy. Yep, it's just the same name. I guess even the most creative minds have their off days. However, that isn't the note I wanted to focus on. Instead, I wanted to draw your attention to this document from Eddie Ritterman, the head of research, that was sent to Leith Pierre and Harley Sawyer, other executives at the company. Quote, Poppy seed isolate, strain N12, times 100, organized fertilizer, synthetic amnio, 18 drums. As always, we made sure to source materials for the growth medium from our carefully selected vendors. No issues to note. I believe these amounts should suffice for our initial steps. Okay, a lot to unpack there.
What does that make sense?
What the heck is organized fertilizer? Did they mean organic? Or is this some kind of fertilizer that's able to arrange itself? Fertilizers, get in line. Single file. You, head over to Sector C, Quadrant 12, now, or it's the compost pile for you. I'm kidding, of course. The main thing that actually stood out to me was that these materials are being sourced for a so-called growth medium. So, not only was I right about this definitely being poppy related, with poppy seeds being one of the 3 ingredients, but it also seems like we were on the right track with the idea that this goop is in fact used to grow something as part of their experiments. So great, theorist instincts for the win. But as this franchise loves to do, we can go a level deeper. Let me tell you a little more about this growth medium. See, there's one other ingredient on that list: synthetic amnio. Amnio is shorthand for the term amniocentesis, a procedure that involves taking a small sample of amniotic fluid for testing purposes. However, given the term is preceded by the word synthetic, and they're ordering 55 gallons of the stuff, I have a feeling that they aren't referring to the procedure, but the amniotic fluid itself. Amniotic fluid acts as both a protective cushion for fetuses growing inside the womb, but also helps deliver nutrients, water, and biochemical products to the fetus, which is interesting to bring up given a huge huge part of my
I'm going to forget
previous
that 5
theory
minutes
was
later.
about the study of embryology. Embryology is the science of studying embryos, sex cells, and fertilization, and how you can alter
What
their
the hell
development and
are
evolution
they
through
talking about at this
external
point?
factors. And we learnt about that from a document that we found in Harley Sawyer's possession during his time in the Young Geniuses program, a program run by Elliot Ludwig many decades ago to help continue the push for scientific advancement. So I theorized that this was how Elliot, and therefore Harley, at least in part, were creating these living toys like Poppy, altering embryos that would grow into whatever toy body they were given. But not only is amniotic fluid connected directly to the idea that embryos are being used, it would also imply I was right about that last bit. Want to know a fun fact about amniotic fluid? The fetus doesn't just swim around in it, it ingests it, and doing so helps form things like the gastrointestinal tract. Now, remind me, what particular part of these living toys keeps coming up? Oh yeah, their digestive tract. In the original Poppy trailer, we were told that the prototype has a digestive tract like all the others, it just didn't need to use it. Ever since then, we've been reminded again and again that these toys are hungry.
My stomach, it hurts. Mine too. When's the last time you ate?
And given this fluid is labeled as synthetic, it means it's man-made, therefore able to be modified to do so much more than just the digestive tract. That's why it's being shown with these vein-like structures going off of it. It's literally helping to grow these structures inside the toy bodies. It is a growth medium on a whole new level. But that wasn't the only big thing from this
That's actually
teaser.
pretty
There's
cool.
one very crucial detail that I've yet to mention that
What is
I'm
it?
sure everyone has been screaming at me to talk about.
I don't know.
Flash frame right before the title
this.
card. In this flash frame, we see a glitchy message that reads, quote, "A needle pulls a thread. The body writhes on the table. Is this it? Is this life?" Footsteps echo off the manor floors. What do I do now? Where do I belong? The eyes glued to the screen. Transformation and rebirth. You think you know what he wants. You don't know anything. Not yet. To me, this is clearly talking about Poppy. Her body was writhing on the operating table as she was transformed or reborn as a toy. The writer questions whether this can truly even be considered life, which would make sense for someone who's literally just seen a person reanimate as a toy. Even if you were a trained scientist, this would be unlike anything you'd seen before. We've theorized that Elliot may have used young scientists from the Young Geniuses program to help in Poppy's creation, which this would then align with. You then have the references to footsteps echoing off the manor floor. The only kind of manor we've seen or encountered, really, is where we originally found Poppy, which the survival logbook tells us is a replica of Elliot Ludwig's home. There's also the hallways that we walk through during chapter 3, but we are hallucinating.
Those are
hard
hallucinating.
at this point, hearing radio broadcasts about.
Okay, so my little theory is, so the part we're hallucinating is actually a combination of both Playhouse, or, not Playhouse, basically the place where the orphans were, say, and a combination of Elliot's house. I feel like this hallucination is a combination of both. I don't know, but I just feel like it is. I don't have any evidence to support it. I do. It just feels like it is for some reason.
A dead body being found on the premises of the late creator. So that also tells us that experiments were being done at his manor, or at least the first one was, the one to save his daughter. It's her footsteps that are echoing through the manor floors, unsure of who she is and, quote, where she belongs. Plus, you know, there's also the giant empty Poppy mask behind the text, with the scene originally being the Poppy cutout bursting into flames. It feels like it is supposed to be about her and her unique transformation.
Yeah, this chapter is all about Poppy.
However,
no one else.
I want you to take a look at that last bit. You think you know what he wants. You don't know anything. Not yet. If this is from the perspective of one of the Young Geniuses, or even just a scientist working in the manor on Poppy's transformation, this he would then likely be implied to be Elliot Ludwig himself. He was the man in charge and was the one that wanted to push science into the future. But if that's the case, then this line could also be assigned to our big bad, the prototype. The prototype has a huge amount of knowledge about Poppy and seems to have some connection to her that goes beyond just being another toy.
Poppy.
which led me and many others to believe that the prototype isn't just another experiment, but Elliot Ludwig now turned.
I still feel like he is. I don't know anymore.
I actually propose that it might be a clone of Elliot due to some timeline shenanigans, but that doesn't really matter right now. What matters is that this line about not
I thought you said time travel. I was confused
does
there.
ring very true for the prototype, especially amongst the theorist community. We've been theorizing about the prototype's plan since the very beginning of the series. For the longest time, we've believed he's building something massive, a brand new, even bigger body. In Chapter 3, we saw Catnap worshipping what appears to be a recreated version of the prototype, made up of lots of broken toy parts. And in Chapter 2, right before Mummy Longlegs died, she gave us these parting words. What have you done? You make me part of it. She then ends up broken on the floor and dragged away by the prototype. So naturally, this felt like a logical conclusion, especially given we see her arm on the shrine Catnap is using. But now, this teaser, it's made me go back and reconsider this idea. We're being told that we think we know what he's doing, making this bigger body out of broken toys, but in reality, we're wrong. And I'm kind of annoyed I didn't see it sooner, because right at the end of Chapter 4, we got the return of the infamous Huggy Wuggy. He's a little broken and beaten up, but he's back, and from the screenshots on Steam, looks like he's once again going to be in hot pursuit of us throughout the facility. But if he's
my gosh, I'm not looking forward to that one.
Not made to be part of this bigger machine,
I'm not looking forward to that part.
Which means he might not be the only one. So, what did Mummy mean by make me a part of him? Well, I wonder if it isn't so much physically making them part of him, but mentally. With all these visuals of the growth medium poppy
that one I don't
gel
believe
that seem to be branching out, it reminded me a lot of plants and funguses and how they share connections through neural networks, which drew me back to the note about the poppy seed intake. My research revealed that the naming convention they used for the poppy seeds doesn't really work that way, at least not typically. In a scientific setting, you'd use its given scientific name, as all strains of poppy have different names, making them easier to identify, such as Papaver somniferum for the opium poppy. The only time you'd refer to a flower or seed with a letter-number combo like this is during experimentation contexts for things like breeding, which does make some kind of sense for this context when they need a specific strain for their experiments, but this naming convention also shows up in the world of Agrobacterium. Agrobacterium is a single-celled organism that lives in soil specifically, and there is one study I found about Agrobacterium that was found in composted poppy flowers. It's called R90,
confused
which
as all
is
hell on
obviously
this.
not the same as the one we've seen in the document, but it does use a letter-number naming convention. I mean, Mob clearly didn't want it to be a real strain, lest they send the world into a panic when nerds like me come along and figure it out. But Agrobacterium is super interesting nonetheless. They are attracted to chemicals released by plant wounds, and once they infect the plant, they multiply. But before they even find the plant, they are able to send a chemical signal to communicate with the plant to get it to release a special sticky substance that allows the Agrobacterium to attach itself to it. Now, we're talking about toys, not plants, but they are made up of a strange poppy-like concoction. So, what if this poppy gel isn't just how they make the organic parts for the toys, it's also essentially a bacterium derived from the poppy flower, one that has a chemical connection to others infected with the same stuff.
I'm not the biggest fan of this one.
Exactly where they
I'm not a big fan of
they're
this
injured,
theory.
as we saw with Mummy, Catnap, and Kissy, fix them up and even control them, making them
I don't like this
part
one.
of him, or
This
at
theory
least
I don't
his
like.
chemical agrobacterium network. But here's the thing: if that's the case, then who's next? Huggy has already been revealed, but if 1006 is gathering up old toys we've defeated and bringing them back, maybe even making them more horrifying than before, which one of the many defeated monsters could it be? My money is the one who put us on this path to begin with.
Yeah, that would make sense for her coming back.
Yep, I believe it's going to be Mummy Longlegs, and here's why. Mob cannot let go of this character. We defeated Mummy all the way back in Chapter 2, but since then she keeps showing up in other pieces of wider media. We get her appearing in artwork for things like Halloween. We see her continued presence in posters along with Daddy and Baby Longlegs. She even got an extra double-page spread in the orientation notebook.
Yeah, that
unlike
one's weird.
Poppy and Huggy, who only got a single double spread each, which seems strange considering they're basically the face releases of the franchise. But the big inclusion has been in the form of notes and VHS tapes. In
How
the
so?
Chapter 3 ARG, we got an incident report where a girl had a mental breakdown during the night due to the red smoke. That girl was Marie Payne, who would later go on to become Mummy Longlegs. And now we've gotten a bunch more notes and VHS tapes about Marie Payne and Mummy Longlegs thanks to, you guessed it, Fortnite. We have a note introducing the Longlegs family of toys. There's another about how Mummy Longlegs was introduced to Experiment 1223, a color-swapped counterpart that they compared to Huggy and Kissy, so likely Daddy Longlegs. This actually ends up going badly and Mummy killed Daddy, with a different note discussing her integration into the game station after that incident. And then we get a transcript of an interview Mummy does with an employee. She doesn't say much except screaming that Playtime Co. took Maria from her, which feels like she's referring to herself, Marie, and how Playtime Co. robbed her of her true identity, which kind of calls back to the ending glitch screen from the teaser.
Yeah, I feel like
What do
Mommy
I do
Longlegs
now?
is definitely
Where do
coming back
I
at this
belong?
point,
She has
now that they
literally lost
mentioned
her
this part.
sense of
I agree with it
identity.
full-heartedly.
Words that the scientists would have heard echoed throughout the halls. And finally, there are then 3 new VHS tapes interviewing an orphan about the game station. In her second interview, she references how she likes Mummy, and in her third, she recalls how Mummy said she'll take care of them and won't let anybody hurt them. As we've seen in the past, when a chapter is building up to release, Mob goes all out, putting emphasis on characters that will be important to that next chapter. We saw it with Catnap in Chapter 3's teasers and ARG. We saw it with Harley Sawyer in the teasers and ARG for Chapter 4. We were
Despite how
given
bad he
more
turned
notes
up.
and audio logs about their backstory and character, but we never got that for Mummy Longlegs. However, we
That's
seem
very
to be
true.
getting it now, right at the time Mob is ramping up for Chapter 5. This amount of emphasis makes me feel pretty confident that Mummy and all this extra detail about her transformation has to be important to the story we're about to see play out in Chapter 5. It could be just as simple as we're going to learn more about the operation process and understand why Mummy and Marie had such a negative reaction to the whole experience, or it's because we're getting a surprise return from
Now
Mummy,
I really hope she
just
comes back
like
now.
Huggy.
This
Maybe
actually makes a lot
broken,
of sense
or
with
maybe
how much
she's been
emphasis they
infected
put
with
on
more
her.
of this poppy gel, growing her into an even more horrifying monster and making her a part of the prototype's hive mind. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. In the meantime, theorists, remember, that's just a theory. A game theory! Thanks for watching.
World premiere on Game.
To be honest, I actually really like that theory. It's definitely an interesting one. It really makes a lot of sense, but I will say the hive mind aspects I'm not the biggest fan of, but I'm actually excited to see what they're going to do with if they bring back Mommy Longlegs. I would really love to see that. But I guess for now, that's probably just going to be at the end of this video and the stream. We've been reacting for almost 2 hours. I have other stuff I need to sadly do today, but I guess for now, thank you all for watching this. I had a lot of fun with this. Definitely got a lot of videos I've been meaning to react to done, so figured why not do it. But anyway, I'll see whatever I post next, I guess. Bye, guys.